just gonna see how it goes. But yeah, so my name's Mia. I study butternut trees. And so butternut trees are, how many of you know what a butternut tree is? Okay, sweet. So that's typically the response I get. So butternut trees are native trees to the eastern US. They're found from in Ontario, Maine, and then down here into Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina range. And so it's this tree that was never super dominant on the landscape, so it was never like a chestnut or an oak. It has had really important cultural importance to people for millennia. So remnants of butternuts in Newfoundland helped anthropologists up there realize that the Vikings traveled much further south along the eastern seaboard than originally anticipated because they're not found that far north. They have been used and continue to be used by indigenous communities up and down the East Coast. So here in the southwestern Appalachian region, the Cherokee serve butternuts at their traditional feast yearly. People have used the butternuts for dyeing for some time. So the yellowish color of Confederate uniforms during the Civil War were actually made using butternuts. And so that nickname was the butternut soldiers and stuff. And so it's been used by people, continues to be used by people. The nuts are really tasty. They have the highest amount of protein and calories compared to all the tree nuts in this part of the world. So squirrels really love them, deer love them. Squirrels are my #1 enemy right now, which is ironic because the #1 enemy of butternuts in the landscape is butternut canker disease.
What?
Butternut canker disease. So it's a fungal pathogen that we have no idea where it was introduced from, where it comes from. It hasn't been found on any other tree in the world. So we don't know. We're assuming it's non-native because the way it acts in the landscape is it has been really, really fast. It's not super genetically diverse. So it's first observed in Wisconsin in 1967. And since then has caused anywhere from 50 to 90% reduction in butternut populations across the range, state to state. Yeah. So they were never super dominant to begin with, but now with the onset of the butternut canker disease, as well as habitat decline and other diseases, and then this other weird thing that's happening where they're hybridizing the Japanese walnut, which was introduced to the States in the 19th century for agricultural and landscape purposes, and then so it's naturally hybridizing with the butternuts. So they're more resistant, these hybrids, to the butternut canker disease, which is great. But then these hybrids are more susceptible to other diseases in the landscapes that pure butternuts have grown resistant to. So it's this really weird genetic habitat history lens happening that we don't really know what's going on. And so my work, for whatever reason, Virginia's been heavily overlooked for butternut populations across the range. So there was this massive monitoring study done where they looked at the forest inventory plots in the 1980s when they first realized that this pathogen was going to be really bad. And then they revisited those plots in the 2000s. And they did it in every state besides Virginia. So we have no baseline data for butternuts here in Virginia. So that's where I come in. And so I'm working with landowners across the state to find butternuts. So I started working on this project, trying to recruit volunteers this winter, working primarily with Virginia Master Naturalists, Native Plant Society, and Extension Master Gardener. And they put a call out. And so now we have over 100 people who have either invited me to their land to look for butternuts, found butternuts, sent me samples. And so we're really just trying to figure out where they're made on the landscape, figure out the genetics, and be able to assess the health across the habitat and assess the health in the wake of butternut canker disease across genetics and habitats. So I go out, I measure the trees, I take pictures of them to assess the disease severity, I collect leaves for genetic sequencing because it's really hard to tell the difference between the pure butternuts and the hybrids. And so we're sending those leaf samples off quickly. So we've now found over 300 trees across the state, which is really great because we had pretty low expectations for how many trees we'd find and how many people we'd be able to get help with this project. And so now we're in the process of going back to the trees we originally collected leaves from and then hoping to collect fruit from them in hopes of eventually propagating and starting a little butternut orchard here at Blandby to continue the resistance testing and just get better understanding what's been happening, but have to be concentrated in the southeast portion of the range, because all this other research has really been taking place in the northeast and the Midwest. So that's my quick spiel about butternuts. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any of them. If you're interested in getting more involved in the project, let me know. I do have some handouts. I passed out the butternut guides. So those are the guides I made for people who are looking for butternuts, with identification and just information about them. Their fruits are pretty distinctive, so most people confuse them with black walnuts. And they do look pretty similar, but the biggest difference is their fruits. Some have fruits that are closed, so there's elongated fruits. They also are known as white walnuts, mother nuts, square nuts. Predominantly here in the South, they've been known as white walnuts, so that might be the best way to take a look at them. And then these are the leaf samples. These are leaf samples that people have sent back to me. Yeah, so the black walnuts are more, so these are more elongated. And then this is one of my baby butternuts. This is Yankee 3, so all of my butternuts have individual tree IDs.
We should knit it a cozy.
Yeah.
We should knit it a little cozy.
Oh yeah, a little cabinet.
It wants to be yarn bound.
But this is actually a really funny butternut because this is from one of my landowners in Folks Run, and she has like 3 or 4 butternuts on her property. And then she was working her compost pile and found this little guy sprouting. So she transplanted it, and I went and picked her up, and really looking forward to seeing what happens with her. But yeah, that's all. If anybody has any questions, yeah.
So I'm trying to establish native plants and everything to money right with that paper, but are they a host plant for anything specific?
Like in terms of like insects and stuff?
Like that?
Yeah, so the biggest one that they're known for is actually for the Luna moth. Yes. Yes, very exciting.
If one of your seeds still live
I was gonna say, hi, if you want a tree, I have a lady looking to get rid of 18 baby butternuts. So I will get your contact information. Yeah,
I trying to take down a tree and I'm trying to decide what to put in its place, so I'm ready.
Do you have a lot of light in your yard?
Huge sunlight in the
I
morning.
have, yeah.
Lots of morning sun until
A lot of
the trees.
morning, okay.
They're ready.
So I'm gonna get that everyone's sort of a propagation program here around Blanchie. Yeah, they are typically found like around riparian areas. They need a lot of high light. They're an early successional species, so they actually need natural disturbance. So that's part of the reason why the habitat destruction has been so bad for them, because like natural things like fires and that other like natural succession that occurs in fields was really great for them. But now that all that's being suppressed, dam construction, really in the 20th century, and then now with real estate development and these wide sprawling rivers, like that's not good for them. So a lot of highlight, well-drained, moist soils, ridge tops, roadsides, open fields. As long as there's light and some moisture in the soil, it should get to at least this size. I think the disease will come and we'll figure out what happens after that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does the disease kill them?
Yes. So yeah, I should have. I didn't really tackle butternut disease. Yeah, so true. So
what does it look like?
So what does it look like? So it causes these oozing cankers on the tree. So it's a fungal pathogen that infects the tree. It's transmitted via rain and insects. But we don't know what insects. We have an idea of what insects transmit it, but we don't have specific species. So that's one of the many questions that remains about them. And so it causes these cankers on the trunk. Pretend this was like a full adult tree. On the trunk itself and then on the upper limbs. And so it starts off as this little black oozing liquid, then turns like sooty in the summer, and then eventually causes like, it just like, I say they're like canker sores. Some people don't agree with that, but tied. It causes these like cankers on the tree that like slowly grow. Some trees are able to callus and heal from them. They're not able to fully get rid of the disease, but they can at least continue to live with it. So they cause these cankers, so then the bark is peeling, the inner wood is exposed. They can get pretty gnarly. I don't think the guide has like beginning pictures of the canker, but it doesn't really show the severity of it. That's pretty bad there, but yeah, some of the trees, like, it has this really distinct diagonal pattern on the bark. So if you're familiar with black walnuts, it has that like furrowed, really rough bark that has the diamond pattern, and then butternuts is more this flattened diamond pattern. And the cankers will, like, you won't even be able to see any resemblance of the bark. Like, the cankers can really penetrate. And so then with the cankers, it then prevents nutrients and water from reaching the canopy. So then some of the other symptoms of butternut canker disease is this like canopy reduction that eventually either kills the tree because of the disease or weakens the tree. So then when we have windstorms, with the flooding that's been happening, then the trees get taken out more easily. But it's not a super long-lived tree, so it typically only lives like 80 to 100 years. So it's not like the chestnut or the beech trees that are living a couple hundreds of years. This is pretty short-lived, small-ish tree in the landscape.
Are there distinctive leaf markings between butternut and a black walnut?
Yeah.
How would I identify it? How, where is
So-
something that would mix up
Between the two?
to the two or other trees that might look like a butternut?
Yeah, so the butternuts and the black walnuts, unfortunately, at this size, look the exact same. And so there are this sort of leaf arrangement are compound pinnate leaves. So this entire thing is a leaf on this sort of tree, and then these are the leaflets. And so butternuts have this terminal leaflet always, whereas black walnuts, when they're younger, have these terminal leaflets, and then as they mature, they drop them. So then it's just like this even number of leaflets along the leaf. If you're really into trees, leaf scars are another way to tell the difference, but this tree isn't old enough to be able to demonstrate that on. But it's really the bark, the fruits, and then the leaves themselves, the presence of the terminal leaflet that tells you that it's a butternut as opposed to a black walnut. But other trees that it's typically confused for are pecans. Pecans also have similar leaf arrangement with that terminal leaflet, they just have way more leaflets. And the bark is slightly different. The hickories, they have less leaves, but also have that terminal leaflet, and the biggest leaves in the butternut are concentrated in the middle part of the leaf, whereas the hickories get the biggest leaves are at the end of the leaf, so that's another way. The other major tree that it gets confused for is tree of heaven, which also has those terminal leaflets, but those leaves have way more leaflets on them, and the bark is like much smoother than the butternut. But black walnut, pecans, hickories, and tree of heavens are the major trees that it gets confused for.
Does it smell? I know the tree of heaven has that awful, like, cloying kind of smell.
Yeah,
Does this-
as far as I can tell, no.
No.
But it doesn't have the smell, but like black walnuts produces the juglone, which is allelopathic. So if you don't know what allelopathy means, it is toxic to the other plants around it. So as it's not as toxic from my observations, I don't know chemically if it's less toxic, but from my observations, it seems less toxic than the black walnuts because more seems to be able to grow around these compared to the black walnuts. But they do produce that juglone that the black walnuts are known for as well. Those are butternuts.
When did they was the data be presented, or I went through the article, how it's in fantastic science magazine, nature perhaps?
Oh, but nature would be awesome. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but so for all the data collection for this chapter of my project will wrap up this fall once the fruits are collected and stuff. And so for everyone that participated in the project, I'll do final in-person and online webinars to talk about the results so that people know the data that they collected and contributed to. And then I'm also going to write up project reports so that everybody can see their data and have a hard copy of their data. So that will be disseminated at the end of the fall. Um, as an environmental science graduate student, I will hopefully do a publication with this, so it will be available eventually in one of the science journals. Don't know when or where, but that will happen eventually. Yeah, and then you have.
Yeah, when did the fruit develop and drop?
Yeah, so the fruit typically developing beginning of the summer, and then the mature ones, or they mature and are viable for propagation like at the end of the summer. So they're like green on the tree, and then once they drop to the ground, like in that natural progression, so at the end of August, beginning of September, once they're on the ground, then they darken and turn like black, dark brownish. So the fruiting is then, and then the flowering is late spring, early summer. Yes.
So we can pick up the fruit and propagate them?
Yeah.
And they can do that just after they drop, or do they need to dry or burn or?
So what we've been, I'm new to the silviculture aspect of this, So what we've been doing is we collect a bunch of seeds from the trees and then put them in pots bigger than this. Well, if there's a bunch of seeds, pots bigger than this with soil, and then just throw them in there, and then they overwinter and they start sprouting. They are cold tolerant species, so they're fine to be outside and stuff overwintering. And then will typically start popping up in the spring. And then I'm sure many of you know about the late frost that we experienced this year. And so originally all of ours got knocked back, and then I think over 90% of them resprouted and are still growing. I mean, this is a tree that's found in Canada and Maine, so it's pretty cold tolerant, which is great for the tree. It scared us a little bit, the first onset of the frost, but in a few weeks they were back to resprouting